Card King, here I come. Hello, sports fans, sports collectors, and all hobbyists. Welcome to the Card King Sports and Variety Show. I am your host, the Catman, Brian Cataquet, a.k.a. the Card King. We are live on ABC's KMET 1490 AM.com. Your number one spot right here for news and talk on the West Coast. I thank everyone for tuning in this morning. On the telephone line, I welcome to the program former New York Mets pitcher who played for the Mets from 1963 to 1964. We welcome in Steve Dillon. Steve, thanks for being on the program.
Thank you, Brian, for having me.
My pleasure, Steve. Big Met fan here. So, Steve, let's take it from the beginning. You're born as a New Yorker and had the opportunity to play for both New York teams, the Yankees and the Mets, right?
Yes, I did. Yeah, I graduated from Cardinal Hayes High School in 1961, and that fall I signed my first professional contract with the New York Yankees. I played 1 year in the Yankee farm system in Fort Lauderdale. I won 15 games down there, and we won the Florida State League Championship. And from there, the next year, in 1963, I was drafted by the Mets. So I had 1 year with the Yankees, 1 year with the Mets, which was unbelievable for me to start off with.
You did. You had a solid 62 season, a solid pitching performance. So how did the Yankees first hear about you?
Well, from high school. My junior year, I was being scouted, but they really couldn't do anything in my junior year. I had to graduate. And then after I got out of high school, I played with the Yankee Rookies, which was an amateur team. I played the whole summer. And from that, I was scouted that whole summer by a Yankee scout. And at the end of the season, they came to my house and I signed a contract. And for me, growing up in the Bronx, signing with the New York Yankees was a life's dream for me. That's how the Yankees got a hold of me from high school.
Yeah, and I'm figuring, at that time, Steve, there must have been a lot of competition. There must have been a couple of hundred players trying out.
Exactly. Yeah, I went to Yankee Stadium to make the Yankee Rookies, which was, as you said, amateur. And Bill Freehand, the Hall of Fame catcher, he was at the stadium helping the Yankees to scout 300-400 players. And from that, I think we got like 18 guys out of the 400, and luckily I made it through. Got a Yankee uniform. We played the summer, and then signed with the Yankees, and then played in Fort Lauderdale for that year, 1962. And then the Mets drafted me in 1963. That's how I became a Met.
Unbelievable. So, all right, so 1962, you're playing for Fort Lauderdale, and that team, from what I understand, it had a couple of familiar baseball names. I believe the great Dolph Camilli, the Brooklyn Dodger, was on that squad, and also Roy White. Any interactions that you remember with those two players?
Well, the Roy White, I had a lot of interaction with. First gentleman that you named, I'm not really familiar with, but Roy White was a second baseman on that. And the other familiar name around the Yankees was Jim Hegan, who was the catcher for the Yankees. His son, Mike Hegan, he was the first baseman. Two people that were players that I interacted with the Yankees. And both of them made it to the major leagues. Roy White obviously had a season. Mike Hegan had a short season, but became first base coach for them, and then eventually got out of baseball.
Yeah, and I mentioned Camilli because he was playing in the 30s with the Brooklyn Dodgers, and I'm originally from Brooklyn, so that's why I saw that lineup, that 62 Fort Lauderdale Yankees lineup, and he was there. Right. So I mean, he was playing since the 30s. Okay, so then so now 62 that season, then you get a call from the Mets. How did that transpire?
Well, believe it or not, I was working in the off-season the first year. I'm on the train, Long Island Railroad, and I read in the paper I never got a call from the Mets, never got a call from the Yankees. I found out by reading it in the paper that I was now a Met. And there was some kind of a draft in those years where if the team that signed me, the New York Yankees, if they did not put me on the major league roster, then I was a fair game. So that's when the Mets knew the season that I had, which was a pretty good season. And my age, I was 19, turning 20. So they figured, let's try this guy. We'll give him a shot. I was left-handed. Being left-handed also was an advantage back in those years. That's the procedure that I went through. And then I called the Yankees, and they gave me more information. And I was a Met. And then I ended up in 1963 in February in spring training in St. Petersburg with Casey Stengel.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm guessing, or I'm thinking, so the Yankees and the Mets, they were both competing for you, right?
Well, I would say so. The Yankees put me on the AAA roster back in '60. Talking about Mantle, Maris, Bobby Richardson, Tony Kubek, all the big boys were being put. So there was no room for me on a roster. So they gave me a AAA roster, highest designation they could give me, so that they were trying to put me. And the Mets saw that, and they said, okay, the only way we can get this guy is we give him a major league contract. So after my first year, I'm major league contract, and it was like a whirlwind. I was in spring training with Gil Hodges, Roger Craig, all of the people that I had watched growing up, following their careers. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, that's fabulous. Now, speaking about Mantle and Maris, how was did you get a chance to meet them? I would guess during spring training, right? You met Mantle, Maris, Whitey Ford?
Exactly. Well, when the Yankees were spring training was in Fort Lauderdale, which I had played for 6 months. Now, at Mets, we're in St. Petersburg. We go to Fort Lauderdale to play in spring training. Now, the Casey was the manager. He knew that I played in Fort Lauderdale the year before. So he brings me along with the team, because the whole team, how they do it today. They split the teams up to go to different places. He took me to Fort Lauderdale. And when I was introduced in Fort Lauderdale, it was like a homecoming to me. Well, with the people in the stands watching, and I get in for let me pitch one inning against the Yankees. I pitched against Bobby Richardson. Mantle wasn't playing. Maris wasn't playing. I did meet them though, but it was on a shake a hand and goodbye. So it was I wanted to stay around with the Yankees as long as I could, but when I got to the Mets, it was like, okay, this is my life dream. Now I'm playing in the big leagues. I knew I wasn't going to stick that year with them or the year after, but I wanted at least to get to the major leagues and play in the major league game.
We're talking with Steve Dillon, pitcher for the New York Mets, 1963 to 64. Now, 63, Steve, a couple of questions. You had Casey Stengel managing. Also, you mentioned, you had Gil Hodges on the squad. Also, the great Duke Snider. I know he was older. Yeah. What can you tell me about those three players, Hodges, Snider, and Stengel?
Well, Gil Hodges came from Brooklyn. And at the time, when in spring training, I was rooming with Eddie Kranepool. Eddie Kranepool and myself, we played in high school, different high schools, obviously, but we played against each other. So I knew Eddie before going there, meeting up with the Mets. So Eddie and I were having dinner, and it was a Friday, and we ordered our dinner. And Gil Hodges came in, and he put his hand. Gil Hodges had hands that will wrap around your head twice, really big hands. So he put his hands on our shoulders, and he said, "Boys, today's Friday. I hope he ordered fish. He was very religious, Gilhard, and it was like, oh, we gotta reorder this again. So that was my interaction with Gilhard was short, but he was just such a lovely man, really. But everybody listened to what he said. Duke Snider, I didn't really have too much interaction with because I was hanging around the pitchers, Roger Craig and Jay Hook. So Duke Snider didn't really get to know too much. Casey was he was such a wonderful teacher of the game. He had so much experience. What I read of him, he wasn't that much of a ball player, but his managerial and coaching stats were unbelievable, especially with the Yankees. So just to be around him was a treat for me. I can tell you a story about Casey Stengel in the off season. Myself and Eddie Crampel, Duke Carmel, we went. It was in Queens, and our table was 4 or 5 baseball players. Tracy Kellett was there. He's the pitcher that threw Roger Maris's 61st home run. He was on the Mets also. So we were at this table, just chit chatting what's going on, and Casey's name came up, and I'm listening, and I'm hearing somebody at the table like degrading him, saying, "Oh, he's too old. He's this, he's that. He doesn't know really too much about baseball. He was a ball player." I said, so I kind of trying to respectfully said to this person, "Did you ever play baseball? No. Did you ever manage baseball? No. Did you ever coach baseball? No. So how are you so knowledgeable? He doesn't know what he's talking about." I said, "You ought to just keep your comments to yourself." I was just like saying what I felt about Casey, and been around Casey for the whole spring training. The next day, Phil was at the table also. So Phil actually was Casey. Casey was Phil's manager. So nothing more was said. I just stopped talking to this big mouth. The next day, Phil Zito got a hold of me and said, "I want to thank you for standing up for Casey. Casey's a ball player, a great manager." So he said, "Do you know who that gentleman was?" I said, "No, I don't know who he was. I know he wasn't a ball player." Well, he was Howard Cosell.
No way, really?
Yeah. So I didn't know. This is when Howard was first starting out in his career of mocking people and just being a big mouth. Anyway, that was a Casey story. Casey's middle name was Dillon also. A lot of people don't know that. But he was a great man. And then in 63, I spent most of the time in Buffalo, and they called us, me and Cranepool, up at the end of the year, and I was able to get into one game in St. Louis. But 63 was a magical year.
Now, Steve, did you also travel or room with Tug McGraw?
I didn't room with him. I met Tug in the minor leagues. He came up, I want to say, in June. I think he signed in June of 64 or 65, one of the two. And we ended up in the same location, Auburn, New York. That's where he had his start. It was one of the affiliates for the Mets then. And he was left-handed. So we had, right off the bat, we had something in common. And we were in the bullpen, and we were coming up with trying screwballs, and he had a great screwball. I was trying to throw that because he wrote the book Screwball, and he put me in the book, a little comment. But that I didn't room with him. We were just teammates, and he obviously went on to bigger and better things.
I always heard he was a genuine funny guy. I don't know if you remember
Absolutely.
that about McGraw.
I do. He was a real life of the party. We didn't play. As I said, that year, that was in June. That year was over for me, and we separated. We went our different ways. But I know that he had a real funny streak, and it was the life of the party.
All right, now I want to get to your debut with the Mets and also pitching the first night game at Shea. So your Mets debut, I believe that was in September 5th, 63 against St. Louis, correct?
Correct, yeah.
How is your emotions? What do you remember? I know it's a long time ago. What can you tell us about that first start?
Well, in 63, I had pitched in spring training games, so I had a little experience in the big league. So my emotions were, nervous to begin with, but the fact that I was on a major league, I played against a major league team prior to that. I pitched one inning, I think, with St. Louis. I think I pitched against Ken Boyer. He's the one that I remember most. I think he grounded out, and that was my 63 career, beginning my career. Now in 64, I was in spring training with them again, and know where I was going to be playing. Casey, I thought enough of me to bring me north, from spring training. So we went north, and now I'm in Shea Stadium. They just opened Shea Stadium. And now I'm with the team, and I'm just loving it because I go from the Bronx to Queens, to play baseball. They were unbelievable. Now I was in the bullpen, didn't get many starts, didn't get many reliefs, and in May, I forget, on the 13th, 14th of 64, first night game, and Bill started the game, and I think around the 5th inning, 6th inning, I get the call on the bullpen to warm up. I came in, and my first inning, I pitched against Tommy Harper, Pete Rose, and Frank Robinson.
Wow!
And got them all out. So I was gaining confidence. The next inning didn't go so well for me. I think I walked a fella. I forget who it was I walked, but I know that Vader Pinson was the next batter up. I had a 3-2 count on him, and I figured he's not going to be for a curveball. I threw him a curveball, and he hits it off the scoreboard. Home run. I get the next guy out. I go into what's that?
No. I mean, I just want to reiterate what you said for the listening audience. So May 6, 1964, the first night game at Shea Stadium, you accomplished the feat as the first pitcher in Mets history to pitch the first night game. That's a great feat, and that's in the record books.
Yeah, that's what I hear. I heard that the first time I heard that was on a radio show where there was like a trivia question. I had no idea that was an important date until it was brought to my attention. But I wanted to continue that story.
Go ahead.
So now I get the second inning. Pinson hits a home run off the scoreboard. I get the next guy out. I walk off the mound. Casey's on the one part of the dugout. I go to the other side of the dugout. I really, I didn't want to listen to this, whatever he had to say. And all of a sudden I hear him, Dillon, come on down here. So I go down there. I figure he's going to give me some instructions, some what, don't do this, don't do that. And what he said to me was, if you throw a pitch like that to the batter and he hit it up the scoreboard and they break that scoreboard, you're paying for it. So what he was doing was telling me in a comical way, calm down. It's okay. He knew that I was nervous and upset. I'll pay the Pinson hit a home run. So I tell that story a lot. That he was more concerned about the scoreboard than he was what pitch I threw to Vader Pinson.
But hey, I mean, you got Frank Robinson to ground out, right?
Yeah, Tommy Harper, Pete Rose, and Frank Robinson. I got out, so I can say that. I didn't have a long career, but I had a career, and then I had memories. It's like it was yesterday that I'm telling these stories. It's just amazing.
Yeah, and also, also your debut, from what I understand, you also got Dick Groat, who was an MVP, and Bill White to ground out as well.
Yes. Well, I remember the ones I told you, the ones etched in my memory. Thank you for that to my attention, too, because that obviously it was true.
It's true, yeah. So, Steve, now the 60s, we all know, had these great players, Aaron, Mays, Clemente. Did you ever pitch against any one of those?
I pitched against Roberto Clemente in spring training. It's in spring training. Wait a minute now.
Was it Clemente? And I often wonder, how would you pitch to a guy like Clemente? High and tight, low and outside?
Well, we would try not to throw it over the plate, make them swing at bad balls. But for me, it was like I didn't even know if my feet were touching the ground when I was pitching to these guys. It was like amazing. Anyway, for the 64 and part of 65 and 64, part of 66, I was in the minor league strictly. And then I had to, I felt that, in those years, you didn't have too many teams in the league. So I had to make a decision whether we were going to continue flight here or go on to another career. So in 66, it was my last year. I left, and then I joined the New York City Police Department in 1969, and I worked 21 years as a cop. So I was back in those years. I was the first New York City police officer that played in the major leagues. So I have a couple of different distinctions, in my career.
Yeah. So, I mean, by the way, I want to thank you for serving, the city of New York and protecting us, during the 60s and 70s and 80s, right? I mean, so when you joined the force, did some of your co-workers, did they know who you were? Did they know about you? Yeah.
Some of them did. The guys that I were close to, because I had a few friends on the police department, and the PBA full team. They wanted to prove me on that. It was like I did it, but only did it because they asked. I kind of had my fill. All the work that I put into baseball when I was starting out, maybe 10 years old, 8 years old. I really worked hard. It was my dream to get there someday, and luckily I made it. I don't know how much time we have left, but I just want to talk a little bit about the old timers game.
Oh, go ahead, please. We have a few minutes. We have like 3 minutes left.
Okay. Well, and then in 2009, when they opened up City, I got a call from Jay Howard, asked me if I wanted to throw out a first pitch. I loved it. I went to him, and then I was on. That's how I became on a Met alumni from throwing out that first pitch. Now, fast forward to 2022, I get another call from Jay, and he tells me that we're having an old-timers game in August of 2022. Are you in? I said. So I'm in good shape. I play racquetball 3 times a week. I still throw the baseball. So I worked out right up until that day, not knowing if I was going to get into a game, if not into a game. But Jay Howard, I kept commenting to him, Jay, I'm in good shape. I don't think any of the guys in my era, Eddie Crankpool, Jay Hook, Craig Anderson, are able to throw a ball. I said, I am. So I'm letting it out there to you. In the second inning, Willie Randolph was for our team, the yellow team. He said, are you ready? I said, I'm ready. I go in, I pitch against Tucci Coleman and Danny Murphy. Now, I got 400 or 500 people in the stands. You know, and then all my children, my grandchildren, it was like my dream has come true. They finally saw me up on the mound throwing to a major league ball player. And because my children weren't old enough, they read articles, but they actually saw me. So it was like, it's over. My final chapter is here. So, stories.
Man, so when you left baseball, Steve, and you were, you worked for the NYPD, did you ever have in your mind, I mean, you must have missed the game.
Oh, absolutely. Every spring training, I would think about what I'd be doing, but I knew that for me, it was over. I mean, it's just my memories were there. Luckily, I still have all my faculties. I know guys' numbers. Ron Hunt. Let me ask you a question. In 1964, Pete Rose won the Rookie of the Year. Do you know who came in second?
I don't.
Ron Hunt.
Ron Hunt.
Ron Hunt's number was 33. I roomed with Ron Hunt in the beginning of the season for a couple of them. They sent me to the minors. So those are things that I remember years ago. I remember numbers. I remember everything that what happened to me. It comes back when I talk about it. Like I could talk to you for another 2 hours of things that I can remember. The wonderful time that I had playing baseball and the memories that I have.
Well, Steve, I mean, you did a great job. I really appreciate it. Maybe we could do something together in the near future.
Sounds good to me, Brian.
All right. You take care. We'll keep in touch, all right?
Thank you very much for having me.
My pleasure. Great job. Steve Dillon, the first ever night game played at Shea Stadium. He was the pitcher. You just heard from Steve Dillon, who played for the New York Mets 1963 to 1964. Until next week, happy collecting to all.